Yes, almost after all the elections, we hear such denials, but unfortunately, we have never seen a clue. And no matter what party one supports, everybody will, support Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu if he can prove it.
Right.
They can't even set up a system which they can check what's going on with the votes. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, he is always wrong.
Netaba, a form of global trend, if you will?
Well, I wouldn't connect it necessarily to the global trend. The claims that Erdogan is playing with election results, or at least the way election results are published, is an old claim. We heard it in the referendum in 2015. This is something that has to do with the way Erdogan completely controls the election committees, and that's something he worked on for many years, and that's part of the criticism against him for his very own type of democracy.
Dr. Sinan Sidi, your take?
Well, I mean, look, before going into this election, there was, a considerable amount of warning from, civil society organizations, analysts and journalists saying, look, here are the ways in which, malfeasance or whatever could, be employed by the government to subvert or subdue the election outcome in terms of procedures. These were already known in terms of possibilities. The question is, what was the opposition preparing to do to address these? And it looks like not much.
And on that note, gentlemen, let's please feel free to interact. Should he win, what would Erdogan be emboldened to do? Or let me ask it even more bluntly, is Erdogan becoming too authoritarian? Dr. Sidi.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Too authoritarian. I mean, Mr. Erdogan, I think, has really sort of altered the trajectory of how power and the business of government in Turkey does take place. I think there's been significant and heightened concern about the quality of Turkey's democracy and democratic governance since the coup attempt of 2016 and the rollout of the hyper-presidential system, in terms of which, powers are being concentrated into the hands of one person. But I think one of the biggest worries going forward is, should he be successful, in winning the presidency for another 5 years, is, he's been campaigning on this sort of polarizing rhetoric of the, hyper-nationalist, sort of anti-LGBT, anti-Kurdish, anti-sort of minority, sort of very bullish sort of tone and rhetoric. And there are concerns that if he does sort of, continue, then domestically, we should not expect any sort of, I would say, major openings in resets in Turkey's democratic governance. Although that being said, we might experience a little bit more attempts at reset with Turkey's relationship with its regional partners and allies, but also its traditional Western anchor. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So before we broaden the conversation to regional impact, Musa Okan, I feel like you're in disagreement.
Of course, he's going to be authoritarian, but as much as the laws allow him. This is the most crucial point, because it may look like that when you look from there, but you should always remember and keep in mind that Erdogan is embracing a huge consensus. As I have just mentioned, there are too many elements, Kemalist elements, there are secular elements, liberal elements among his allies, and authoritarian. If you mean an authoritarian like Mr. Gaddafi, no, he's not going to be something like that. He is going to, of course, he is going to be authoritarian as much as laws allow him. I totally agree with his voters. They always say our country is in a very critical position geostrategically, and yes, I think Turkey needs a leader like Erdogan. But I want to highlight once again, he can be authoritarian as much as laws allow him, because otherwise he won't have this much supporters.
And Netaba, if we are looking at Turkey's fundamental regional and global position, how is it going to affect its global standing, the election results?
Well, I think the most important thing to look at is to look at either Turkey's economy or its foreign relations. And in those two elements, we can see that Erdogan was failing pretty badly in the last few years. He managed to pick a fight with almost everybody across the Turkey's border, whether it's Greek or Iran or Israel. He had a fight with almost everyone,
Yeah.
even the Egyptians. And economically, the growing inflation. Turkey is not the economic power it was 5 years ago, and I think those things can make him even more irrational, or even try to turn more to a nationalistic sort of base that he has, and to try and be less ready or less willing to either negotiate with partners from Turkey's immediate environment.
Dr. Sidi, we are nearing at the end of our conversation here. So final push of this nerve-wracking election campaign. What are we to see in the remaining 2 weeks?
Oh, who knows? I mean, at best, it's going to be quite exciting and fireworks. Like I said, this is unprecedented. Turkey in its history of being a presidential system, which is since 2017, has never seen a runoff, right? And so this is uncharted territory for all political parties. So it's going to be, a nail-biting 2 weeks in terms of, what will happen. But Erdogan does have a tremendous advantage going forward. The question is, will he be able to essentially push forward past the finish line? But I'll also be interested to see if he does make it across there and retains power. What will his approach to the world be? What will his message be to Turkey's sort of partners and allies, be they traditional or be they new ones? We'll have to see.
Musa Ukan, wrap it up for us.
Well, Erdogan is an expert on winning elections, and he's an expert on campaigns. I think, let's say it's going to be harsh within the next 15 days, but I believe both parties are going to honor Turkish democracy, and I strongly believe there is going to be a nice election. We're going to get clear results, and at the end of the night, Erdogan will be the winner, because, as I told, the way he speaks, he is touching the majority. But unfortunately, CHP has this problem. They cannot touch the nation, and this is a chronicle problem for CHP. Not about Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, but former presidents, except Ecevit. CHP cannot embrace the majority. This is the problem. Yeah. So I expect a harsh but exciting campaign within the next 15 days. But as I told, Erdogan is an expert on campaigns, and I think he will rock it.
Well, this way or another, gentlemen, it seems that half of Turkey is going to be very happy with the result, the other half perhaps less so. Musa Ukan, Bar, Dr. Sinan Sidi, thank you so very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure listening to you. Thank you, gentlemen.